Hello, everybody. Welcome. And I'm so excited to have a very special guest with me today, Miss Molly Pittman herself. So Molly is one of the top Facebook ads marketers in the world. She was the VP of marketing for Digital Marketer. She now runs her own business, consulting, training, helping businesses in the e-commerce and the local space. So I'm so excited to have her share her wisdom with you today. So welcome, Molly.
Hey, Allie, thanks so much for having me, and thanks to everybody out there who's listening and taking the time to consume this information. Sorry for the weird sun here, not in my normal office space, so bear with me. You'll get this will keep changing, but yeah, anyways, happy to be here, happy to help you local folks. It's such a specific business type, and I know a lot of the marketing information out there, it might feel like it doesn't pertain to you sometimes, and that's why people like Allie are so special. Not only her commitment and really caring about serving you guys, which you can tell through the production of this awesome show, but putting out specific information for you, which not a lot of that exists. So I just want you to know, I hear you, and I think really brick and mortar businesses are, one of the most important types of businesses in the world, right? But so underlooked when it comes to marketing, training, and growth. So any way that I can help, I'm happy to do so, and I'm excited for this episode.
Yeah, so am I. And you said something that I really think maybe we can go ahead and start off with. The fact that there are a lot of differences in how a local business is going to be marketed versus how an e-commerce business is going to be marketed. You're lucky enough to have a lot of experience with both. You've really been able to see those differences and see the questions that people ask. And it's not something that I feel like too many people have had the opportunity to do. Usually people are either in one space or the other, but everything that you teach, it does apply to both. And I think one of the most important things that we could kind of help these businesses understand is that some of this information will be different and you will have to treat it different, but there's so many ways that they can take the information or the training or the knowledge that they get for businesses that are not like theirs and still find a way to apply it to their own business. That's really kind of what I did years ago. Honestly, watching your courses and your trainings.
Yeah. And the core principles are the same, no matter the business, but there are some nuances for sure.
Yeah, and I think that I've seen people really struggling with that. And I think it would be cool to kind of go over what some of those differences are and how you could kind of take it from an e-commerce expert perhaps and still see it applied to local businesses. So what do you feel like are some of the fundamental differences in the way that you would approach marketing e-commerce versus a local business?
Yeah, great question. I think it's first important to understand why they are different, of course, before we get into tactical advertising stuff. And that really has to do with, in my mind, two things. Right? The first is the audience. So for a local business, the audience, the people that could possibly purchase your product or service, it's a completely different ballgame to an e-commerce company who can sell online worldwide, right? So that is one of the biggest differences. And whenever I teach my targeting process and how I go about, cold traffic, finding new prospects and new customers on Facebook, I always add caveats in there for local businesses, because that is in one of the ways which they are so vastly different, right? A brick and mortar business requires someone to actually walk in the door, usually. And so that's inherently different. That's very different. And that comes down to changes in, potential audience sizes when targeting on Facebook. That's where I see a lot of local businesses struggle because, I'm recommending to target 3+ million people, and not that many people probably even live in your state, possibly.
Yeah.
And maybe you can only serve people within 20 to 30 miles of where you live. So that is just very inherently different. And then the second part also comes back to the consumer, of course, because that is what marketing and business is always about, but more in terms of the channels that they use to communicate with you and their touch points, right? They are very, very different than an e-commerce business or an info business or really any other business type. And that, again, is because this activity that we're looking for is an in-person activity, right? So not as much might happen online, which usually means that marketing, I don't mean it's easy by any means, and I'm not downplaying it, but marketing for a local business can be a lot simpler than marketing for an e-commerce business, which you guys, you all are lucky in both of these categories that I'm speaking to. Number one, first with the targeting, your audience is defined for you, right? In Facebook, yeah, there are some ways you can maybe dive a little bit deeper, but people that live or are in the area, that is your avatar. That is your audience, essentially. So that is done for you. That makes it easier. And because these channels, there's not as many online touch points usually with a local business, it actually makes your traffic system, and kind of if you think about your business as a machine, it's just a simpler machine because there aren't as many touch points. We're not always needing to retarget people that didn't add, that added to cart but didn't purchase, because a lot of that is happening in person. Absolutely. So those are the two real big changes that I see and or differences. But I also want to add, number one, those are to the benefit of a local business owner. And a lot of you guys might be thinking, well, I like owning a local business, but it's not as scalable as an e-commerce business. That might be a struggle for you. Something else I would love for you guys to think about, especially in these times where local business owners are struggling a little bit, is how can you add online as a channel?
Absolutely.
So that you aren't just reliant on in-person activity, and so that you can essentially have both. And actually, my college roommate, her mom owns a clothing boutique in a small town, Sparta, Tennessee. It's called John G's. And she has been running this clothing boutique. It's 4 stories. It's huge. And it's this small business, but she's just always, for 30 years, been very attentive, serves her clients. She shows them the latest fashion trends, how to pair things. She styles them. She adds so much value that people want to shop with her and they want to buy clothes from her, versus going to Nashville and shopping at the big stores.
Yeah.
So what she has done is just added a simple Facebook group where you can use the comment sold tool, and her daughter are trying on clothes on Facebook Live, and they're giving instruction and education in this Facebook group, and they've added 10 grand a month to their bottom line and diversified their channel. And people are like, wow, I get to shop with you from home now. So that's just a little example of that. And I wanted to get that out and not forget that, and just encourage you guys. Don't look at your business as being local as a limitation, because there are so many options for you. And another benefit here, and where it is different than e-commerce, we'll add a third one, is you guys know your customer way better than a purely online business does. And the reason for that is you talk to them in person. You get to know them. You really understand them as a human, where most e-commerce businesses have never even met any of their customers in person, right? Which makes marketing so much more difficult. So anyways, I think I answered your question, went down another rabbit hole, but
no,
hopefully
I love
that
it,
is helpful.
All of those things were, absolutely so relevant. So in terms of the audience sizes and the audience differences, I get those questions all the time. And I think there may be a lack of education for a local business in terms of how small is too small. When we really learn from a lot of people with experience in info products and e-com, they are talking about audiences of millions of people. And so I feel like it gives local businesses this idea that there's nothing they can do, which is, obviously incorrect. It's great to have such an amazing pool of people to be able to try and sell to. But essentially, whatever size you have to work with is the size that you have to work with. If you're a business that won't go more than 40 miles, from where you're located, if you're a service business, well, you've got up to 40 miles. Then you have to think about the fact that those audiences are going to get a little bit smaller if you even just want to add age demographics in there or gender. And sometimes businesses don't need those. A lot of businesses I work with, really someone under 35 is typically just not really going to work with them. And sometimes it's even higher, but it doesn't affect the results that they're able to get at the end of the day, because they're still able to get themselves out there to the people that need them. And it still can work, but it's on a smaller scale. You just kind of cut everything back a little bit, and
it's simpler.
The same system.
And that goes back to what I said, like the traffic system is so much simpler for a local business, where an e-commerce business might have 15, 20, 30 active campaigns at a time in their account to try to maximize this full customer journey, where that just isn't necessary with a local business. It's not, and it doesn't mean it's not as powerful, right? The key for local that I've seen across the board always, and you preach this too, which I love, doesn't have to do with audience size. It's all about the offer, right? Like, you are already relevant to your audience so much more than an e-commerce company, because you are in their local area. I mean, think about it. Every time I see an ad that says whatever city I'm living in at that current time, I immediately pay closer attention, even if it's a terrible ad, just because it feels more relevant to me. So you are a step ahead, y'all. That means that you don't have to do as much of the dating, getting to know you phase as other businesses do. But what you really need to do is craft at least one very solid entry point offer. Usually that's a lead magnet, something that you give in exchange for their contact information, a permission to follow up. I know you have a lot of examples of these, but anything that feels very valuable to them that also maybe gets them in your door. And so, for dentists all the time, I have them do a free teeth whitening and maybe some x-rays completely for free. People love that. And then of course they come back to the dentist. Of course they spend more money once they have them in their chair, right? Like spas, free sauna sessions. I know that for a lot of your design and sort of more construction-based clients, it's like free, I think, design strategy sessions is what you give. That is so key, guys. Like, when I was at Digital Marketer, a business that they owned was in the prepper market. And a part of it,
I love that.
A part of it,
I bet they're booming right now.
Well, I'm not sure if the part of it were these brick and mortar businesses in Austin. I'm not sure if they're still open, but they were tactical shops. Mm-hmm. And so we were thinking, okay, what would be a great offer? I guess this is more of a tripwire if you're kind of in the digital marketing space. So someone giving you their time or a little bit of money in exchange. And so we decided we have the ability to make dog tags, which is something that this market, like a lot of ex-police officers, firefighters, military, they love that. Yeah. And so we just ran ads about these free dog tags. We'll even engrave them for you. And that was the entry point offer. Those were the only ads we ran in the business, right? But it kept a steady stream of customers coming in. And the great part was that it was pretty strategic. They were getting something of value. It only cost us like $1.30 or something to produce this. That's awesome. And like 5 to 10 minutes of someone's time. And then while that person is waiting for this to be engraved, they're shopping the store, or they're at least becoming familiar with the store. The salesperson is trained and understands how to hold and continue a sales conversation from this dog tag. And like that got them in the door. That is an offer. And most local businesses I see, they're just like, hey, we exist, come see us. And it's like, that's not strong enough, y'all. Like, that's not what's going to set you apart. And another benefit is, even if they sign up for this teeth whitening and they don't come in or they don't schedule an appointment, you now have their email address. They're a messenger subscriber. You can follow up with them. And when they need you, they remember you. So I just think that entry point is so important, especially because you're dealing with small audience sizes. It doesn't have to be super fancy. It's just something that's really appealing, and call out your audience in the ad, Hey, Austinites, I live in Amsterdam now. Like, hey, I don't know what you would call us, but Make sure they know that it's relevant to you, because that is a leg up that you have as a local business, is true relevance. You service the town or the region in which they live in, and people pay very close attention to that.
Absolutely. And I think that, honestly, helping people create really strong offers is one of the things that I enjoy doing the most, because you can get creative, but really the best offers are going to come from understanding your audience and what they really need and how they buy and how often they buy or how often they should buy. But probably one of the biggest things that I run into a lot is, we both know how strong and amazing entry point offer can be. A lot of businesses have it in their head that this is just a way that they're going to lose money, or it's going to produce a lower quality customer. I hear that all the time. And truthfully, there's always the potential that someone could be, in your mind, a lower quality customer. That doesn't really depend on where they come from sometimes.
And really quick, Allie, like, they are going to be eventually. Like, that's how a business scales. It's like, right now, if you're only getting customers because people are coming to you, those are the people that are most problem and product aware. They have a problem, or they want what you have so bad that they sought you out. But you know that, like, you can't control that, right? Mm-hmm. Like, that is organic. If you want to dip into paid ads and truly scale a business in like a methodical way through paid advertising, yeah, they might be lower quality customers, but they're way more customers than you would have had in the first place. So for me, sorry to cut you off, but I just want to intersect in that part. A lot of that is just a mindset shift. And I see that with info. I see that across the board. That's not just a local business thing. That's just a mindset shift to say, cool, I am going to scale my business this way. I'm going to do this because I want this email list, this retargeting audience, like this big group of people who have shown interest in me before, that I can run promotions to, that, when times get hard, I can reach out to, right? And I also want a predictable and profitable way to consistently bring customers in. And the best way to do it, I believe, is through these paid channels and a really solid entry point offer. So to answer that is like, yes, as you scale out, they may be lower quality, just because maybe you're reaching that person that wouldn't have redecorated their house for another year, right? Like, they weren't in the moment enough to like show up at your store or to call you, but you piqued their interest to take action now. And that's direct response advertising. So I think just that's a really important thing for people to think about.
I totally agree. And you're right, it is a mental thing. I also think that a lot of that has to do with how you run your business outside of your marketing. So exactly what you were talking about with the dog tags, that's an amazing offer. However, if people were coming in and these salespeople were not friendly, they were not helpful, they didn't offer something to that customer, they didn't try and get to know what that customer really needed, show them the right things while they're in the store. Maybe they don't have anything in the store that their audience really wants. Maybe they have no follow-up. So those are kind of the things that I see that, you may feel like somebody comes in just for this offer and they never turn into a customer. But the question is,
that's why? On you.
Yeah.
And
why
that's
are they not
part of
turning
this,
into
right?
a customer?
This is a two-part system. It's making sure the entry point offer is sexy enough and attractive to generate the lead, but it also needs to seamlessly, and you need to have the systems in place to turn that person into a customer, right? So for example, with a lot of dentists, we'll do this free teeth whitening thing, and then the person working in the office doesn't follow up with these phone leads for a week, or adds no context to the conversation, or doesn't follow up at all. And that part of it is just as important as the lead gen. So, whether you need scripts, whatever you need, or your team needs to understand this process, they need to know what role they play in this process. And they need to maybe even be doing some role play and some practicing, because not everyone is just inherently a marketer or a salesperson. So
you're so right.
It's a complete optimization point for most local businesses using a lead gen strategy like this.
And that is absolutely another major difference between e-com and local is having that back-end system. So obviously any good e-commerce company, they've got to have things together on the back end as well. They've got to be able to fulfill, they've got to have good customer service, all of those things. But the difference is that they can see and kind of control, what that initial purchase looks like on the front end. They have a clear picture of
when people drop off.
Mm-hmm, exactly. But for local businesses, that has been really since back in the days when I was a marketing director working for local businesses.
Yeah.
That was my biggest challenge, hands down, no matter where I was working. And then as I opened my agency, it was the major challenge with every single client. And that's the fact that I don't feel that local businesses are educated enough on follow-up and on sales. They see this as something that either doesn't actually need to be done, or they believe that marketing will just run their business for them. And that's not how it's going to happen. You said it yourself when we first started. This transaction is happening in person 9 times out of 10. Sometimes it's over the phone. There has to be some type of interaction between the customer and the business.
You should put just as much time into being a good salesperson or training your people to be as an e-commerce person would a sales page or their checkout process. Like how obsessive we are at like the conversion rates on those pages and looking at heat maps and activity. That's the same amount of time that should be put into that part of the process for a local business. It just happens in person.
Totally. So a couple of, just I guess quick stories about just what can happen if you do have this disconnect. I had one client that we came up with an amazing loss leader, entry point offer, great opportunity for them to get in front of as many people as possible. They had great upsells that they could offer. They said they had a strong sales team. All they needed to do was get in front of their ideal customer, which that's perfect. Those are amazing offers. Yeah. So they were spending only $1,000 a month and we were getting hundreds of leads for them per month. So everything was working really well, but the people that were answering the phone calls that were coming in, and we weren't necessarily guiding everyone to, have a phone call necessarily, but they were getting a lot of calls outside of what we could clearly see was produced from the ads. I don't know if you want to call it their office team. They had never even been told about the offer by the owner.
That's exactly what happens because most local businesses see marketing as like a department.
Exactly.
When marketing is your business.
It all has to work together. It's
got to be streamlined. That's usually what happens is they don't even know, this isn't
so they were
hard.
very confused and they weren't able to properly communicate with the customer. And, it still worked well for them, but I had to really instill in them, you need to be training your people that are answering the phone that you do have a different offer that's going out there and it is getting a lot of attention. So they have to be ready for that. And then the second thing is, the speed of the follow-up. You talked about these dentists that weren't following up for over a week or more. I mean, that is hands down one of the biggest mistakes that people make. They assume that if someone signed up or showed interest that, oh, I got them, they're there.
Right.
They're there for a moment when you have their interest, and you've got to do everything possible to take advantage of that moment because life is busy, life is chaotic. We're going through a really crazy time, right now where your business is not what's on someone's mind 23 hours and 58 minutes of the day. You know, you've got them. You need to try and convert them. And that happens with instant follow-up. So one of the businesses that I worked for, they didn't follow up with anyone. And after going through tests, I took over all the phone follow-up for months just to get a really solid analysis
and see what happened.
I set appointments with 85% of the leads on the first call because they were good leads. They just need somebody to reach out to them.
I think like a way to sort of control this or to make sure you're doing this is even though you're a local business, you still have a sales funnel that can be measured through data. Yeah. And it should go from like click-through rate on your ad, cost per click on your ad over to, how many clicks you sent to your landing page. What was the conversion rate of people that signed up? what was the conversion rate of people that scheduled calls and how many people became a customer, right? Like that is data you should be looking at. And what most of you will find if you choose to employ a strategy similar to what we just discussed is if you are looking at the data regularly, it will show you where the holes are, right? And those are most likely at the bottom of your funnel if you are employing this type of strategy. So even if you don't like want to admit this, or just a good way to control this or keep an eye on this is just set up a simple Excel sheet for yourself and monitor those metrics on a daily or weekly basis so that you know where there is more opportunity or where your focus should be.
Yeah, definitely. And the other thing is you do have all of those numbers on the digital side, but then what I often see is that businesses stop tracking any type of number once the lead comes in. That's actually the most important thing to continue.
That's why you got to get the team involved, right?
Exactly.
They need to, the more data they give, the better the marketing's going to be. So, I mean, it's a no-brainer, y'all.
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, it really is why we started adding things over time that would just give business owners everything that they needed without necessarily having to rely on them to create it, because
there you go.
Unfortunately,
they don't have time.
Yeah, they didn't have these things. So giving them sales scripts, for setting appointments, giving them a way to track all of the leads and at what point they may be dropping off or converting, really helping them tie all of those pieces together was probably one of the most impactful things we've done, not just in terms of the business, but really to show them, number one,
here's
you're
the
getting
process.
a great ROI. Like you are.
Here's how it all works.
Yes. And showing them what the results actually look like and opening their eyes to where their internal team can still improve. So super, super powerful data, super powerful information. And I think the other thing to really think about is because these people are in a local community, even if someone does not buy, they can still promote your business for you if they have a great
to other people. It's why a lot of times I don't use age or gender targeting even, because I know that it will show to people that they know it's for their specific community. So they're going to tag their brother, their sister, their friend who is a teacher or who, does need to go to the dentist. I mean, and also you're retargeting. I mean, guys, they could drive down the street after they saw your ad a few weeks ago and decide to pull over and come in your store. Like almost no marketing that you're going to do, as long as it is thoughtful and you're giving value and speaking to that community, is going to go wrong for you, even if you can't measure it, just because your avatar is truly built in for you. And that's something to, I think, really be grateful for and take forward.
I think you're so right. And honestly, so for those of you who may be listening to this at a later date, right now we're kind of in the midst of the coronavirus outbreak, and local businesses are having to think about what they're going to do. Are they going to continue advertising? Are they going to stop advertising? Are they going to change their business model to more of this hybrid model that you were talking about, which is an amazing idea. And the thing is that I don't necessarily want to tell people, oh, you have to put all your money into marketing. But I'm definitely not going to tell people who were marketing that they should stop, because the truth of the matter is everything is going to come back to the way that it was. Those people are still in your community, and you don't have to promote an in-person appointment if that's what you were doing. You could use this time to build your email list with that lead magnet, to really improve your follow-up processes, to even get some great brand awareness and PR out there. One thing that I was recommending to people is, if this is a time when people may be struggling just to eat, why don't you donate to a food bank? Really, put that out there.
Adapt. Like this is one of the first times in human history in our lifetime where almost all of mankind has the relevance, which is a hook in itself, of this one experience that we're currently going through. And I think it's even on the product level for local businesses or service level. Like, how are you adapting, right? The restaurants in Amsterdam, they're doing takeaway. The Italian restaurant down the street that was white tablecloth now has pre-made meals in a refrigerator at the front of their restaurant. My friend Michael King, who helps with marketing with LASIK businesses, he's taken LASIK to, they're doing consultations and appointments over video chat, you know? So the first thing is like, how do you adapt even just your product or service so that you can keep going and keep paying the bills? And if you are able to do that and your advertising is still working for you, definitely continue, because that is going to allow you to keep people employed, and like the economy needs that right now.
Exactly.
So adaptability, and also, you know, adding other streams, right? When possible, if you can use this time of focus, if you're completely shut down, maybe like, for example, the clothing boutique in Tennessee, she's using this time because her store is completely closed now. She's just putting all that time into ramping up the online boutique. So also look at it as an opportunity to, I know you guys hustle, and those like local business owners, brick and mortar, are the hardest working business owners out there, and they don't have a lot of time for this stuff. So if you're shut down, this is a good time to make time for it.
I absolutely agree. And that is one thing I really have been encouraging people to do, is try and see the silver lining. You know, we offer a lot of different products and services, and the biggest objection that we hear when it comes to, you know, something that requires time on the part of the business owner is that they don't have enough time.
I don't have time.
I think we all, you know, are pressed for time, but I've always been of the opinion that we make time for what matters to us. We make time for what will help us see the results that we're looking for. So you may have been forced into a situation where you have a lot of time, but let's see it as a beautiful opportunity to really get these things under control and set up so that when things do bounce back, you're able to go full force with something that you know is really going to work for you, and hopefully make up any of this lost revenue. So the problem is that if businesses just kind of clam up and shut down and, you know, go with inside themselves for this time, they're not going to be getting the word out. They're definitely not going to make up for anything that was lost. And they are, in fact, you know, contributing to an economic issue, because we all need to try and do whatever we can to keep stimulating the economy right now. And then
if you can function, do it. Even like a local restaurant here in Amsterdam knows everyone's home right now. They just put flyers in everyone's mailboxes. Hey, here's our menu. Here's how to get a hold of us. We would love to serve you. Like, that is not that hard. And it was touching to me. I was like, yeah, I want to support this business, and I don't get a lot of mail, you know? So just adapt. Think of out of the box ways to survive right now and use this time for good. I think there definitely some good things will come of this.
And I think, you know, just kind of one final thing in terms of the hybrid model, there are some businesses that may not be able to take their typical products and services and put them online. But then there are plenty that could bring in new technologies into their business to make it easier for the end consumer. So for instance, our laundry client, they actually, you know, pick up, wash, deliver the laundry. That's a perfect business to really, you know, focus on right now, because they have every advantage in the book in terms of what's going on. But how can people order their next load online? How can they, you know, track where their shipment is? And, you know, how can they put out these cleanliness alerts or whatever to make life easier? Then we've got, you know, the remodeling clients, the virtual consultations is what they're having to transition to. And I wouldn't say the shocking part, because I kind of already know these things about a lot of them, but they're not using any of the digital tools that are available to business owners, obviously, like online business owners are. I mean, I think about what we do internally: Slack, Asana, Zoom, making sure that we do video trainings for our team, really putting these things out there that are not necessarily only in a time of change, but that could really improve their processes, making things more digital in the way that they serve their clients.
Absolutely.
So that they can even do more business with less effort. So I think that's a great thing to think about, is maybe your products and services can't be sold online. Or maybe you just haven't figured out how that's possible just yet. It may be a shift. It's funny because I was just talking to my husband about this last night, about the remodelers specifically. And Lowe's and Home Depot, they're still open. They're considered essential. You know, they've got tools that people need for their homes. And people are still going to need to fix things. Well, a lot of people are going to be trying to do these things themselves right now. So how can I, as a remodeler, adapt to that? I do things for people. Well, maybe it's a great time to get some trainings on how people can do things themselves.
Yes.
Those people may not be your regular clients anyway. You're not going to hurt your typical revenue because it's a different segment of the market. 9 times out of 10, you can just use your knowledge, use your experience to serve those people in a different way and walk them through the process so that they're excited. You can still make money. That's something you can sell anywhere in the world. Totally. Which is amazing. And then you can continue to do what you're already doing. So sometimes I feel like it takes a little bit of extra creativity, but maybe this is what business owners really need to start thinking about, and not being comfortable with the way things are, realizing that if nothing else from this experience, I think we've all realized just how quickly things can change and without notice. You don't always have time to prepare. So what you need to do is just live in a state of being proactive instead of reactive, so that you're one step ahead. You've got this leg up. Whenever something does arise, you're going to be able to keep pushing forward with confidence instead of so much anxiety and fear. So I think that this is definitely going to be something that business owners can use right now. But I think that this information that we're talking about is just really relevant at any time, because it's just about how we see our opportunities, how we see our business, what we're willing to do to continue to grow. And I think that that's just so important.
Totally. Yeah, I couldn't say it better. And I think it's just pushing evolution a little bit. And there will be a lot of silver linings. There will be, obviously this is a very sad situation, but, I think as digital marketers, we are the most equipped for this because our market's changing so much every day. Like ads change every day. Like we have to be proactive. But for other business owners, this is a bit of a different experience. So so glad to be able to serve you guys. Hopefully this information has been helpful, and just follow Allie. Like the fact that you're willing to serve this market and really speak to them. Like I said, there's such a need for it. So thank you for having me, and hopefully this was helpful for you guys.
Oh, I know it will be. So if you could leave our audience with one final piece of advice, what would you tell them?
Ooh, good question. I think it's just to, and this is relevant now and always, maintain calm, try to do whatever you can to process and digest so that you individually remain in a calm state. Because when you come at your business from a place of abundance and that peaceful feeling, that calm feeling, you'll make better decisions. Things just go better. And if you are panicking, and I'm not saying that there isn't time for bad feelings or fear, I have it too. But if that is what you're operating from, that feeling is what you're operating from, that will show up in your business in probably not the most positive way. So just take care of yourself, and that will allow you to take care of your business.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much again for being here. I know that the audience is going to get so much from this. Really appreciate you coming on, and I know we'll probably do it again soon. So thanks again.
Let's do it. All right. Bye, dear. Thanks so much.